Okay, so in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to talk about a few problem areas that I notice that a lot of beginner guitar players seem to have as they're learning how to improvise. And these are things that are very easy to identify and easy to fix. So I'm thinking by the end of this video, if this is you that I'm speaking to, you should be able to remedy the situation. I'm going to give you a formula for how to do that. So the first area is called, I'm calling it a run-on sentence. It's when you learn how to play a scale, like the minor pentatonic scale, for example, and you do this. You just kind of go up and down the scale, meandering around, but you're not really focusing on any of the notes, and there's no punctuation in that sentence. There's no commas or periods. It's just one big run-on sentence. So the first thing is just realizing you're doing that and realizing it's super important as a musician to put in pauses and stop. Those silences are just as important as the notes you're playing. In some situations, they're even more important. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is knowing which notes to land on. So I'm going to give you a formula for that. So as the chords go by, you kind of know which notes you can focus on. And hopefully that will help you as you're learning how to improvise. All right, so in this video, we're going to go through all of the lesson material. If you'd like to download the MP3 jam track that I'm going to use to demonstrate everything, which is an extended jam track, as well as download the PDF downloadable that I've created, which show you which notes you can land on. You can get those extra materials by going to activemelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP527. All right, so I got the idea for this week's lesson the other night. I was sitting in one room. My son, Ben, who's 19, he's learning how to play guitar. He's sitting in the other room. I could hear him in the other room. He's playing along to like some Pink Floyd song, and he's playing the minor pentatonic scale, and he's going like this. And it just kind of went on and on. All of the notes were correct. There wasn't anything wrong there. Totally in key, but there were no breaks. There was no pauses. And as a listener, I was like hanging on the edge of my seat going, dude, stop. I need that resolve. And that's the first point I want to make is to pay attention to when you're playing, if what you're playing sounds too much like a scale. I hear this a lot when people say, I feel like I'm just playing a scale over and over. I'm going up and down a scale. Like, how do I make it sound like music? The first thing you might think about doing, the first thing you should definitely think about doing is pay attention to how often you're pausing. Because music is made up of phrases or just like sentences. You're telling a story, and it's those dramatic pauses that grab people's attention. It's like, wait, why did he stop? The room got quiet. What's going on? And with music, it's something like, right? So it's those little phrases. I'm storytelling now. I'm building up to something. So pay attention when you're playing lead. Are you just going up and down the scale? Are you taking fragments of the scale and playing them and then stopping? Now that's the easy part is, okay, stopping, sure, but what notes do I stop on? That's the big part, and that's where we're going to spend the rest of this time in this video is focusing on that. I want to give you a formula. Okay, so this song we're going to be playing is in the key of A. It's a 1-4-5 blues in the key of A. We're going to be playing over 3 chords, an A chord, a D chord, and an E chord. And we're going to be staying in the key of the song. And so what that means is you kind of have two options when it comes to playing lead. This is a very simple way of looking at it. You can either try and play the chord changes, which means you match the scale to the chord as the chord goes by. You're trying to match that up or play arpeggios of those chords and so forth. A little more sophisticated. But the other option would be just staying in the key of a song. So if you're playing a blues in the key of A, you can play the A minor pentatonic scale through the entire song. And so it's going to work over all the chords. Only, though, if you know which notes to land on. And so that's the key to that. And so we're going to be talking about that. And we're also going to be not just staying in the minor pentatonic scale. We're going to be hitting some notes from the major pentatonic scale. I'll explain all that as we get into it. So we're kind of think of this as sort of blending the major and minor, but it's still just sort of pentatonic world, staying in the key of the song. The other little point I want to make is this song is in a major key, so these are major chords. when the song is in a major key and you're staying in the key of the song, you can play either major or minor pentatonic scale. You can think of them as dials. You can dial it in and make it sound bluesy by playing minor pentatonic scale. You can dial it in and make it sound more happy or positive by playing major pentatonic scale. This is oversimplifying, but that's just the way that I view this. If the song, however, is in a minor key, so you've got minor chords, then you can only use the minor pentatonic scale using this little formula that I'm talking about when we're talking only pentatonics. Only the minor pentatonic is going to work in a minor key, but you can use both in a major key. So we're going to look at a 1-4-5 blues, a very simple blues in the key of A. And we're going to start off really just playing minor pentatonic scale. So we're going to be out of this A chord here using the E shape. That's the position I'm going to be in. And I'm going to be playing the minor pentatonic scale here. That's pattern 1. I thought that would be the easiest for most of us because most of us are familiar with that position. And so in that, there's going to be 3 A notes that are going to be safe notes. Let me just point these out first. The first one is here on the 7th fret, 4th string. Then on the 5th fret, we have the 6th string and the 1st string. So in that little neighborhood, we've got this A, and this A. Now we're not even going to worry about this 6th string. For the most part, I'm not playing on the 6th string that often when I'm playing lead. Just depends on the situation. But just to make it easy, we're going to focus on this one and this one. Okay, so the first little formula tip is over the 1 chord, which is your A, and the 4 chord, which is your D, you can play that A note and it's going to be fine. You can land on that A note for either of those chords, for your 1 chord or your 4 chord. I'm going to give you an example of that in just a minute. But when it comes to the 5 chord, it doesn't work so well. It can work, it depends on the context, but it doesn't work so well to play that A note or to play the 1 of the major scale. You're going to want to play this note, which is your 5. That's your 5th interval of your major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's in this case, it's your E note. And so we've got 1 here. And then we've got 1 down here on the 7th fret. 7th fret, 5th string, 5th fret, 2nd string. So you have those 2 E notes, which is what you would play over the 5 chord. So just remember, I mean, we're making this super simple for now. So over the 1 chord, you've got your A note. Over the 4 chord, you can play your A note. And over the 5 chord, we're going to play our E note. Okay, so we have the jam track playing now. It's a blues in the key of A, and we're going to be in this position here, which is our E chord shape. We're going to be thinking about our minor pentatonic scale. This is our, at least for now, right? Pattern 1. Okay, so as I mentioned, when you're playing the 1 chord, you can land on this note. When it's the 4 chord, which it is now, you can land on this note. Or this one, same note, octave higher. When it's the 5 chord like it is right now, you can land on this note, or this one. 4 chord, back to your A note, and then 1 chord back to your A note. Let me just demonstrate that, just using those notes for now. So here's the 1 chord. I'm just gonna hit that A. We'll do it in both octaves. Now this is boring, I realize it's gonna get better. Okay, here, the song's going to the 4 chord. Let's do it again. Octave higher up here. And then back to, so far we've just used 1 note, I realize it. Now, it's the 5 chord now, so we can go. And then back to the A for the 4 chord, and then back to the A for the 1 chord. Okay, so you can follow along with that. Now we're going to add some notes in between that. We're just going to play notes from the minor pentatonic scale. So check this out. But we're going to land on that A note for the 1 chord. Now here's the 4 chord. I landed on the A note again and it works. And notice the stops, right? It forces you to stop a little bit. There's the 5 chord, so I landed on that E note. Back to my A note. And then back to the A note for the 1 chord. So that's what I'm talking about for sort of level 1. Now let's add to that. So now we're going to add, for the 1 chord, we're going to be able to play this note and this note, which is the 6th fret 3rd string. And so that's your 3rd interval of your A chords. If you think of your A, when you make your A chord, that's just that note from it. Now I realize that's not in the minor pentatonic scale. That would be in your major pentatonic scale. So we're kind of blending major and minor pentatonic scale in this example. But for the 1 chord, you've got this note and this note. And then for your 4 chord, you could play that A note, as we mentioned. But now we're going to add this note to it. 7th fret 3rd string. So think your D chord using the A shape. That would be those 2 notes out of that. This is also in your minor pentatonic scale, so you can think of it just, we can not worry about the chord shapes so much. I just wanted to point that out. But when you're playing a lead, you can land on this note or this note for the 4 chord. You can land on this note or this note for the 1 chord. Now when it comes to the 5 chord, we've got this note, which is the root, which is your E note. But I'm going to add this note down here. Now this is also not in your minor pentatonic scale, but just bear with me. So it's the 6th fret 4th string. And those would be 2 notes out of your E7 chord shape here. You can think of it that way. But those are 2 notes we have now for the 5 chord. And this is your root of your 5 chord, and that's the 3rd interval of your 5 chord. The root of your E chord, 3rd interval of your E chord. Okay. Now let's pull all of this together and play over this jam track using some of this. So here we go. Let me let it loop through here. All right, here we go. There's a 1 chord. We're going to land on that A. Now I'm going to land on that 3rd interval. Hear that? Here's the 4 chord. We'll land on that new note right here. There's the 3rd interval of, now I can go back to my A too, right? So here's the 5 chord. We'll just hit that 1 note. There's my 4 chord and then back to the 1. All right, now let's get a little more sophisticated using just that. We don't want to go any further. Look at that. I came to the 3rd interval. Here's the 4 chord. Here's the 5 chord. 4 chord. Notice the little stops in there, right? It's those little stops that make it stop. Stop again. You're making phrases as opposed to, playing through the scale. That's not making music. That's just reciting your alphabet. You're not having a conversation. Versus you can hit 2 strings like that. Here's the 5 chord. Here's the 4 chord. Here's the 1 chord. Notice I'm not playing all over the fretboard either. I'm just staying in this one little tight region. All right, let's add one more little layer to this. We're going to now add the flat 7 to each of those chords, and this is going to give us more options. So for the 1 chord, we've got this note, we've got this note, and then our flat 7, I'm going to show you 2 spots. We can play it up here on the 8th fret, 2nd string, or down here on the 5th fret, 4th string. That would be the flat 7 of your 1 chord. It's what that note, you add that note to your chord to get a 7 chord. So we'll do the same thing for the 4 chord. So you had this note, this note. We're going to add this note. We're just going to add that one in this one spot for now. So you've got it here, here, and here. Those notes are going to work great. Any of those notes are going to work great over the 4 chord. For the 5 chord, we've got our 1, our 3. We're going to add this note here, 7th fret, 3rd string. That would be the flat 7 of your E chord. And you can hear that when you play it together. It has that sound. Now I'm leaving out the 5th interval of that of the 5 chord. Okay, so let's take all of this and put it into practice here. So here's the 1 chord, here's the 4 chord, and now we're back to the 1. I landed on the flat 7. Now here's the 4 chord, landed on the flat 7 of the 4 chord. Back to the 1 chord. Here's the 5 chord. So the 4 chord, and then back to the 1 chord. So those are your safe notes. Now start making music with that, working in pauses. There's the 4 chord. Back to the 1. Just made a little triad there. There's the flat 7 of the 4 chord. Here's the A note, right, for the 1 chord. Here's the 5 chord. Back to the 4. All right, so I realized that in this lesson we were very limited in terms of a very simple 1-4-5 blues. We played in one small little region of the fretboard. I didn't show you notes all over the fretboard, and I did that on purpose. The point of this isn't necessarily to play all over the place. Sometimes you have to learn to make music or make a statement with just a few words and sort of stay in one area, kind of get the idea going, get that sound in your head of what it sounds like to stop and what it sounds like to stop on the right notes. Then you could take your other patterns of your pentatonic scales, for example, and figure out how to play those notes in those patterns and where they are. They're in all your patterns. You just have to kind of work that out. And, do your homework on that and kind of figure that piece of it out. I can't really, it would be a whole course really to kind of map out everything. And maybe that's an idea for something in the future. I realize also songs get more complicated than just a 1-4-5. What if the song has a lot of chords in it? And, then what would you do? That may be what you're asking. If you've got minor chords and diminished chords, same thing. You just find out, you would have to do a little bit of homework. So if you had a minor chord, for example, like a C-sharp minor chord, you'd have to say, okay, what are the notes in that chord? And once you identify the notes in your chord, then those notes are always going to be safe notes to land on. Doesn't matter if the chord is augmented or diminished or any sort of extension of a chord. Those are going to be safe places to land. And that's what you're trying to find is places to stop and places that are safe. But the best place to get this thing going, in my opinion, is landing on the root, the 1, landing on the 3rd interval of the chord, or landing on that flat 7, especially in a blues. It always works and it sounds great. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this week's lesson. Leave me a comment below and let me know if any of this resonated with you, or if you have any issues with anything. Maybe you're still stuck on some of this. Let me know. And let me know if this has opened a new door for you and it's, you're getting excited about playing. That's always good to read, and it motivates me and then other people. So remember, as a premium member, you can download the MP3 jam track, the one that I used to demonstrate all of this. And I have a very long version of it so that you can just keep it going and kind of explore all kinds of different possibilities for notes to land on. And I hope that you'll do that. All right, we'll see you next week for something new.